think CCC camp dinners were thin soup and dry bread? Think again. In the 1930s, the Civilian Conservation Corps fed hard-working crews 3 full meals a day. Basic, yes, but hot, plentiful, and built for muscle morale and massive batch cooking. The mess hall wasn't a sideshow, it was the engine. And the menu pulled straight from institutional playbooks, Army know-how, quartermaster staples, and crowd-proof casseroles. Tonight, we're digging into 25 camp suppers that kept America's tree army swinging axes by day and scraping plates clean by night. This isn't nostalgia. It's fuel. Creamed chipped beef on toast, S.O.S. It sounds like a punchline until you taste what kept crews on their feet. S.O.S. began as a military solution, dried chipped beef folded into a thick white gravy and poured over toast so the sauce stretched, the bread filled, and the line moved. The Army printed versions as early as 1910 and standardized them again in World War II manuals. Butter or fat, flour, evaporated milk or reconstituted milk, black pepper, then the beef, scaled by the gallon for 100 plates. Not pretty, perfectly practical. In CCC camps, that same canteen logic fit like a glove. Shelf-stable meat, milk powder, kettle speed, and calories you could swing a Pulaski on. You didn't order it for style, you ate it to work, and then you went back for seconds, because the peppery gravy clung to the toast and the toast clung to your ribs. Mess Sergeant's 3-pound meatloaf. It wasn't fancy, it was formation food. The mess sergeant packed ground beef with crumbs, onions, milk powder, and seasonings into heavy loaves, seared the tops for a little color, then baked whole pans at once. Why meatloaf? It scales cleanly, slices cleanly, and feeds a crowd fast. Manuals of the era spell it out in black and white, standard meatloaf formulas using pantry-stable add-ins to stretch flavor without wasting time or money. In CCC camps, where meals were plain, hot, and abundant by design, that logic was the point. You fuel the tree army and keep the line moving. At supper, thick slices landed beside potatoes and gravy. By morning, the cooled loaf turned into swift sandwiches for crews headed back to the cut. Nothing left over, everything spoken for. Crackly edges, soft centers, pepper in the gravy. That's morale you can chew. And if the sergeant was smart, he baked one extra. Tonight's pan for the tables, tomorrow's pan for the tool trucks. 6-layer casserole. It looks like a home recipe until you scale it to 100 plates. 6-layer casserole stacks what camps had in bulk and what holds heat. Ground beef, raw rice, sliced potatoes, onions, carrots, or celery. Then canned tomatoes on top so the starches steam through. Into the oven go sheet pans and deep trays. No fuss, no stirring lines, just layers that seal in moisture and stretch flavor. It's Depression-era logic at its cleanest. Cheap staples, big pans, predictable results. Reviewers of the Civilian Conservation Corps cookbook call this one a keeper, and for good reason. Its DNA matches the era's cookhouse math that later spread through cafeterias. You could plate it by the square beside beans or cabbage, hold it warm for late crews, and still have structure left for seconds. The edges go a little crackly, the rice drinks the tomato, and the onions perfume the whole pan. Not fancy, just morale that stacks. Brunswick Stew. Not a single recipe, more a rule. Use what you've got, make it thick, feed everyone. Brunswick Stew rode into CCC mess halls from the South with a long, argued history. Virginia and Georgia both claim it, and early pots leaned on small game like squirrel or rabbit before chicken and pork took over. What stayed constant were the crowd-proof anchors, a tomato base, beans, often limas or butter beans, corn, potatoes or okra, onions, and enough simmer time to turn the broth into velvet. In camp kitchens, that logic was perfect. Cheap pantry goods, canned tomatoes, and meat you could stretch across 100 trays. One CCC-era adaptation even swaps in potatoes for limas and keeps the chicken, proving the stew's golden rule. Make it work for your pantry and your people. Best of all, it's a late tastes great kind of pot. Hold it warm for the last crew, and it deepens by the hour. Ladle it beside cornbread or Johnny cakes, and you've got morale that sticks to the ribs in the story. American Goulash. Call it American Goulash. Call it American chop suey. Either way, it's the same blue-collar hug in a pan, elbows of macaroni, ground beef, onions, and a seasoned tomato base cooked long enough for the pasta to drink the sauce. CCC mess crews loved it for the same reasons cafeterias still do. It scales, it holds, and it plates fast. The lineage is cafeteria clear. New England's American chop suey and the broader American goulash are regional names for a ground beef and mac casserole, cousins to Johnny Marzetti, all built for crowds. Quantity cookbooks kept versions alive to this day, right down to steam kettle steps and line-ready cards rather than home-sized notes. In practice, the mess sergeant browned beef and onions, bloomed the seasonings, dumped in tomatoes, sometimes a little Worcestershire, then stirred in par-cooked macaroni so the starch thickened the pot instead of washing out on the tray. It's the dish you serve when the line is long, the crew is quiet, and everyone wants heat, salt, and something that doesn't require thinking, just a loaded spoon. Cheap staples, consistent results, clean trays. That's not a shortcut. It's how you feed a company. Swiss steak. It didn't come from the Alps, it came from a hammer. Swiss here means Swissing, pounding tougher cuts like round to tenderize before a slow braise. In camp kitchens that turned cheap beef into something you could call supper with a straight face. The mess crew dredged the steaks in flour, seared them hard for a browned crust, then smothered them with onions, peppers, and a tomato-rich broth. Into the oven they went, covered, low, and patient, until the collagen gave up and the gravy thickened to a spoon-coating gloss. The beauty wasn't just flavor, it was logistics. Army-styled recipe cards set it up for canteen scale, steaks layered in roasting pans, onions sweated in a kettle, seasoned stock poured over, baked till tender, then the pan sauce ladled over slices. It plated fast, held heat, and tasted even better after a rest. Exactly what a CCC mess needed when the line stretched out the door. Pound, brown, braise, ladle, cheap cut, respectable finish. That's the craft. Turkey and dumplings. Call it the closest thing to Sunday supper a forest camp could promise. The method is pure practicality. Simmer turkey until the meat loosens, lift it out to cool, skim the pot, then shred the bird back into a broth thickened with a simple roux or the starch from vegetables. Now, the moment everyone waits for. Drop dumplings right on the simmer, scant scoops of biscuit mix batter, lid on, no peeking, and in 15 minutes those little clouds puff into a soft lid that traps the aroma under the steam. It's craft more than guesswork. Service notes literally spell out the drop dumpling technique for big runs, built to ride a hot line and still taste like comfort. In CCC time, turkey showed up reliably on holiday menus. Proof camps bought birds and knew how to stretch them across a company. So the day after, a pot like this practically wrote itself. And that's the point. Hot, basic, plentiful fuel that turns leftovers into morale. Spoon it beside Johnny cakes or plain bread and watch the room go quiet, except for the clink of tinware and the hiss of the kettle. Work done, bowls emptied, spirits up. Salmon Loaf. Not a luxury, an elegant economy. Pantry stable canned salmon gets folded with crumbs and eggs, a classic panade with milk, packed into a loaf pan and baked until the edges brown and the crumb sets firm. That firmness is the point. It slices clean, plates fast, and works hot for supper or cold the next day in sandwiches headed to the worksite. Zero waste, steady morale. The idea wasn't a fad, it was cookhouse logic. Early 20th century pamphlets from the Alaska Packers Association pushed salmon loaves built exactly this way. Canned fish, crumbs, crackers, milk, eggs, sometimes served cold, sometimes steamed or baked. Decades later, the Armed Forces Recipe Service fixed the method for galley production, with onion, celery sweated in a kettle and practical notes that keep a line moving. In a CCC mess hall, that through line mattered: predictable ingredients, predictable results, and a loaf that stood tall under warming lamps. Lemon wedge if you had it, brown gravy if you didn't. Either way, it stuck to the ribs in the schedule. Tamale Pie. Call it cafeteria logic with Tex-Mex edges, a chili-style beef and veg base on the bottom, a cornmeal lid on top, baked until the edges set and the center stays saucy. It isn't a tamale, it's a casserole that showed up in early 20th century cookbooks and spread through high school home economics classes, where it won on price, energy density, and tidy plating. In a CCC mess, that's gold: ground beef, onions, peppers, tomatoes, beans, or corn if you've got them. The cornmeal crust seals the pan so the starch steams through while the chili keeps everything moist. You can hold it hot, cut it into squares, and feed 200 without breaking stride. Later, card sets locked the playbook: cornmeal with boiling water for the topping, seasoned beef beneath with chili powder and cumin, even ripe olives for salt and bite, with service line yields spelled out so nobody guesses in the rush. The result eats like comfort after a long shift. A little heat, a little sweetness from corn, a lot of heft. Spoon a stripe of beans, drop a square beside it, and the trays come back clean. That's not cutting corners, that's feeding a company. Johnny Marzetti. Call it Columbus comfort engineered for crowds. Macaroni baked with ground beef, tomato sauce, onions, and a blanket of melting cheese. Cheap to scale, easy to hold, and morale by the square. The standard origin tale points to Marzetti's restaurant near Ohio State, where Italian immigrant Teresa Marzetti reportedly named the dish after her brother-in-law. By the 1920s, it had spread across Ohio and the wider Midwest. Some locals now treat that story as legend, but either way, the cafeteria DNA is undeniable. Home ec classes and dining halls embraced it because it assembles ahead, bakes cleanly, and slices tidy on a serving line. The core playbook hasn't changed: brown beef and aromatics, fold in a seasoned tomato base, crown with cheese, and bake until the edges set and the center bubbles. For CCC mess halls, that meant predictable pantry items, standardized pans, and trays that moved fast after a long shift. Whether you call it Johnny Marzetti, or its Canal Zone cousin, Johnny Mazzetti, it eats like a hug, saucy, sturdy, and built to feed a company. Salisbury steak with brown gravy. It didn't come from a TV dinner. It came from a doctor with a theory and a cookhouse with a schedule. In the late 1800s, Dr. James Salisbury pushed seasoned, broiled ground beef patties as health food. By the 1930s, the idea had migrated from clinics to cafeterias, where oval patties met a pan of brown gravy and a tray line built to serve at pace. In practice, the mess crew mixed ground beef with binder and onions, shaped fast, browned hard for fond, then finished the patties in an onion-rich gravy so every tray got sauce and the line kept moving. The trade guidance makes it explicit: sheet pan runs, oven profiles, and holding notes for volume service, proof that Salisbury steak wasn't nostalgia, it was logistics. The Armed Forces Recipe Service even catalogs frozen Salisbury steak and gravy, the cafeteria descendant that kept morale up long after lights out. On a CCC tray, it read like respect for a hard day: peppered gravy over patties, mashed or rice to catch the drips, and edges just set so the meat stayed tender under sauce. Not fancy, just hot, predictable, and built to turn tired crews into quiet, full ones. Field truck hot soup. Not every noon meal meant a march back to the mess hall. On big projects, camps sent lunch to the men. The playbook was simple and smart: gallons of beef and root veg soup simmering in kettles, loaded onto trucks, and run out to the crews so the ladle met the shovel where the work was. CCC veterans and researchers describe the bull cook system: some days a sack lunch, other days a hot meal in the field, with trucks carrying soup and staples directly to the job site. That solved three problems at once. It kept production steady, it kept morale warm, and it kept the line moving without a long walk back to camp. Photo captions from Shenandoah even show work crews waiting to be served a hot noon meal, proof that on-site service wasn't a rarity, it was routine. The soup itself was built for travel, thick enough to hold heat, simple enough to scale, and forgiving if a crew ran late. Ladle, cup, second ladle. Steam in the cold air, chatter dies down, and the only sound left is spoons on tin. That's logistics turning into comfort, hot, basic, and right on time. Snowflake potatoes with brown gravy. Not the gluey kind, the fluffy, steam-light snowflake mash that holds on a plate and drinks gravy. The mess crew cubed fresh potatoes, simmered in salted water, then whipped with reconstituted dry milk and a little fat until the peaks just stood, never pasty. Specs from canteen guides lay it out cleanly. Non-fat dry milk, butter or margarine, salt and white pepper, made for transfer to warming cabinets without turning gummy. Then comes the morale. Brown gravy the cookhouse way. Scrape the fond, cook flour in drippings or shortening. Whisk in beef stock, simmer, pepper. Made by the pot so every tray gets a ladle that clings. In CCC camps, menus leaned into exactly this kind of reliable starch plus sauce logic. Plain, hot, abundant food, designed to fuel crews and keep the line moving, as modern readers of CCC recipe reconstructions note. Plate it with Salisbury steak or any pan meat and watch the room go quiet except for spoons on tin. Fluffy mash, glossy gravy, predictable portions, that's camp engineering on a plate. Baked macaroni and cheese. Not the stovetop kind, the sheet pan, steam table kind that feeds a company. The play is canteen simple. Elbows par-cooked, a white sauce built from dry milk and flour, folded with cheddar, poured into pans, topped with crumbs, and baked until the corners go browned and crackly while the center stays creamy. Quartermaster notes literally print it with parboil times, sauce ratios, and holding temps. Proof this wasn't nostalgia, but a repeatable routine any mess crew could run on time. World War II era TM10-412 even spells out the crumb top and a 350-degree Fahrenheit bake. Exactly the texture crews remember, crisp on the rim, spoonable in the middle. CCC cookbooks and modern reviews echo why it fit camp so well. Cheap staples, steady output, and a tray that slices tidy beside beans or greens. And the timing couldn't have been better. Mac and cheese surged in Depression of WII's America as a high-calorie, low-cost staple, then marched straight into cafeterias. Plate it hot with brown gravy if you're flush, or let the cheese do the talking. Either way, those browned edges are where morale lives. Trout, cornmeal crust. Not every camp could swing it, but near cold streams, supper sometimes tasted like a day off. Fresh trout, cleaned and left damp, dredged in seasoned cornmeal, then slipped into a hot cast iron pan with bacon drippings until the skin crackled and the flesh turned pearly. That cornmeal and skillet method runs deep in mountain country cookery, quick, sturdy, and perfect for whole trout. In mess hall terms, it also behaved, a fast fry that held on a tray with lemon if you had it, or pickled onions if you didn't. When fish was on hand, the fried fish routine was already mapped for canteen pans, so a sergeant could hit time and temp without guesswork. And the setting fits the CCC story. Plain, nourishing food served hot to crews working the parks and forests, with noon or evening meals organized to keep production and morale steady. On nights when trout made the line, the room got quiet fast. Cornmeal crunch, a little smoke from the pan, and that clean, sweet bite you only get within a few hours of a cold stream. Simple ingredients, handled hot and right, that's how a camp supper feels like a small celebration. Cabbage soup. It sounds plain, until you remember what a camp kitchen needs: bulk, heat, and predictability. Cabbage soup is the quiet workhorse: shredded cabbage, onions, potatoes, or carrots, a tomato base if you've got it, black pepper for warmth, built to simmer in a kettle and hold on a line without breaking. Depression logic, mess hall payoff. Reviews of CCC cookbooks even call out a dedicated cabbage soup entry, proof it wasn't just a rumor on the line, it was written down and cooked often. Quantity guides standardized this whole approach. Veg-heavy soups with measured yield so a mess sergeant could hit the numbers and the clock every time. And if meat was tight, you still tasted supper. Cabbage sweetening as it softens, broth thickening from potatoes, pepper waking everything up. Even mid-century cards fold cabbage into base stews, a sign of how common and economical it was in institutional pots. Ladle it before the main, or make it the meal with a heel of bread. Either way, it does the one job every CCC bowl had to do: send a tired crew back to work warmer than they arrived. Bean beef chili, early style. Not the canned kind, the bowl built from dried chilies and beef fat. Early frontier formulas literally pounded dried beef, suet, dried chilies, and salt into travel bricks, then boiled them back into a stew. No tomatoes in sight, just red heat and rendered richness. In Texas and northern Mexico, that idea became the famed bowl of red. Slow beef plus a puree of dried chiles, fiercely defended by purists as a no-tomato tradition. But camps feeding crews also needed stretch. By the early 20th century, beans were already riding shotgun with chili, even as competition rules later outlawed them for true Texas style. So a CCC-friendly pot split the difference. Beef seared in tallow, chili paste bloomed in the fat, pintos added for ballast, and a long, low simmer that turned late-shift silence into clean bowls. The lineage runs through San Antonio's chili queens, working-class chili meat stews sold hot in the open air, straight into big kettles where yield mattered as much as heat. No fancy toppings, no dairy, just a peppery broth that bites back and a spoon that stands up in the beans. After a cold night on the line, one ladle steadies you, two send you back out warm. That's not nostalgia, that's fuel. Spanish rice, canteen pan. Not restaurant pilaf, the cafeteria classic that rides a hot line without falling apart. Spanish rice in a camp pan starts where the quantity cards start. Onions and green peppers sweated, seasonings bloomed, rice and a tomato base folded together, then baked or steamed in trays until the grains drink the liquid and turn brick red. The Armed Forces Recipe Service prints a Spanish rice card with kettle steps and yields, aromatics, rice cooked to spec, then combined and held for service. USDA school formulas echo the same logic today. Load 12 by 20 by 4-inch pans, add seasoned broth, cover tight, and bake for big batch service. Clean slices, predictable portions. In a CCC mess, that meant one pan solved two problems at once: a starch that recharged crews and a red pepper warm flavor that cut through gravy-heavy menus. Scoop it loose for early trays or cut it in squares when set for the late shift. Either way, it held heat and came back with empty tins. Cheap staples, simple technique, reliable output. That's Spanish rice the camp way. Scalloped cabbage. Not coleslaw, a casserole built to travel from kettle to service without falling apart. The move is simple and smart. Par-cooked cabbage, layer it in pans, flood with a basic white sauce, flour, fat, milk, and finish with crumbs so the top goes gold and crackly while the center stays soft. That breadcrumb-topped, cream-sauced style shows up in early 1900s recipes. Proof this wasn't invented by cafeterias, but cafeterias adopted it fast. In CCC terms, it's perfect. Cheap seasonal cabbage becomes comfort with clean slices, exactly the large batch logic the CCC cookbook documents, family recipes with matching for a crowd versions. Army systems reinforced the playbook. Standard sauces, crumb tops, and oven bakes written for canteen pans so a cook could hit time and temperature every day. Modern Southern casseroles keep the same bones: white sauce over cabbage, crumbs, 350 degrees Fahrenheit bake. Because it works. Steam trap below, crunch above, morale in the middle. Plate it beside any brown gravy meat and watch the room go quiet except for forks on tin. Ordinary cabbage, engineered into comfort. That's camp math. Brown gravy beef tips over potatoes/rice. Not steakhouse cuts. Worknight trimmings turned into comfort. The mess crew seared cubed beef hard, scraped the fond, and let a pot of brown gravy do the softening while the starch waited. Mashed potatoes on heavy days, rice when the schedule demanded clean scoops. Big batch cookery made the gravy foolproof. Cook flour in fat or pan drippings. Scrape those browned bits, whisk in beef stock, season and simmer, straight out of the service manuals. CCC operations prized exactly this kind of predictable, hot, abundant food. Mess halls were among the first buildings raised, built to keep crews fueled 3 times a day. And the method backed the workflow end to end. TM 10-412 directs cooks to finish braised meats using brown gravy, a logistics-first approach that turned modest beef into morale on a tray. In practice, the line moved fast. Spoon a mound, ladle glossy gravy and beef over the top, pepper to wake it up and send the plate down the rail. Cheap cuts, stretched flavor, clean yields. After a late shift, 1 bowl steadied you, 2 sent you back out warm. Not fancy, just fuel that listens to the clock. Baked beans, company pan. Not the star, the steady baseline under everything else. CCC mess crews ran 1 big pan of beans to anchor the tray and keep menus from getting fussy. The logic was institutional. Navy beans, often canned, onions, a sweet savory seasoning set, mustard, a little ketchup or molasses, sometimes bacon, mixed in deep pans and baked until thick enough to hold a square. The Armed Forces Recipe Service prints exactly that playbook, with bake and holding guidance so a cook could hit time and yield without guessing. Earlier manuals show the same idea for dry beans, measured soak cook steps, and baked beans and tomatoes as a 1-cup side, proof this wasn't a one-off but standard cafeteria engineering. Drop it beside Salisbury steak, chili, or a slice of casserole and the line moves: starch, salt, a touch of sweet, and a sauce that won't run all over the tray. CCC accounts make the broader point. Food was basic but plentiful, 3 times a day for camp, serving roughly 200 men at a clip. Exactly the scale where a background pan of beans earns its keep. Not flashy, just fuel that behaves, and a reason the trays came back empty. Dried apple pie / brown Betty. Not fancy bakery work, the dried fruit fix that made dessert possible in the woods. Dried apples were soaked back to life, sweetened, spiced, and tucked under a thick, sturdy crust that could take heat, travel on a tray, and still slice clean. Museums preserve 18th to 19th century formulas that start exactly there. Rehydrate dried apples, add sugar and spice, bake till jammy. The same frontier logic that survived well into the 1930s. Brown Betty is the thriftier cousin. Fruit layered with sweetened crumbs and baked until the top goes bronzed and the center turns saucy. Documented in print by 1864 and later a staple of American home and cafeteria cooking. In CCC camps, desserts like these showed up when they mattered most. Holiday menus were printed keepsakes, proof that mess crews made room for pie on big days. And that fits the CCC brief exactly. Food was basic but plentiful, designed for morale as much as calories. So when a pan of dried apple pie or a crumb-topped Betty hit the line, the room got quiet fast. Smoke from the oven, cinnamon in the air, and a slice that tasted like a day off. Lemon cake with lemon glaze. Not bakery frou-frou, the sheet pan lemon that wakes a tired camp up at the end of the line. The play is simple and scalable. A light lemon-scented cake baked shallow so it cools fast, then a thin, tangy glaze poured over warm crumb to soak in and set to a soft shine. CCC-era adaptations keep showing up in modern reconstructions of camp cooking, including the Civilian Conservation Corps cookbook, where testers call out the lemon cake and glaze combo as a reliable closer. Quantity systems later locked the knobs and dials. The Armed Forces Recipe Service printed lemon cakes in volume format, with pan sizes, mix ratios, and hold temps that keep a serving line honest. Proof it wasn't nostalgia, it was logistics. What hits the tray? Clean citrus, quick glaze, tidy squares. A little zest if you had it, bottled flavoring if you didn't. Either way, the glaze carries the lemon and seals the crumb so it travels. On a hard week's night, 1 square tastes like a day off, sweet, sharp, and gone in 3 bites, with just enough brightness to close the meal cleanly and send the crew out smiling. Mess coffee and powdered cocoa. Not cafe coffee, the black urn stuff that sat on a stove or warming rail and kept camps moving. CCC days started with coffee on every breakfast line, plain, hot, and poured fast, and on bigger projects, the heat followed the crews. Trucks delivered noon meals and drinks out to the worksite so the ladle met the shovel where the job was. Army Food Service doubled down on coffee's importance, guides for handling, storing, and brewing so even a rookie could keep an urn tasting decent under pressure. You hear the field version in oral histories too. After mess, a driver loaded lunches and made coffee for the boys in the field before heading out. Cocoa was the night shift's softer answer. Powdered cocoa plus sugar plus reconstituted milk, standardized with precise batch notes, mix, heat, hold, and pour. The same sets covered coffee for manual or automatic urns, proof these were beverages engineered for pace. On cold evenings, it wasn't about finesse. It was about something hot in a cup that steadied hands and quieted a room. 1 tin mug of camp coffee to keep the pace, 1 cocoa to close the day. Either way, the line moved and morale went up with the steam. Holiday plate, camp menu, 1938 to 1939. Not just supper, a ritual. When Thanksgiving hit the schedule, CCC mess crews turned the line into a holiday table. Roast turkey with sage dressing, giblet gravy, mashed potatoes, candied yams, creamed vegetables, cranberry rolls, and pie to close. Surviving menu cards from CCC camps in 1935 and 1939 show exactly that spread, right down to the turkey on the cover artwork and the printed rosters the boys saved. In Ohio's Mohican Forest, 1938 barracks celebrated with roasted turkey, gravy, potatoes, yams, creamed cauliflower, peas, cranberry, Parker House rolls, coffee, pumpkin pie, and even a post-meal cigar. Another 1939 program from South Dakota's Camp Sheridan confirms the same all the fixings template, preserved today as scanned menu photos. On a tray, it landed like home: turkey, potatoes, brown gravy, a hot vegetable, bread, and pie, poured with coffee, and on cold nights powdered cocoa for a softer finish. The point wasn't luxury, it was morale with ceremony. A printed menu in your pocket and a full plate after hard weeks in the forest. Holiday or not, the mess hall did what it always did for 200 men at a clip. Feed them hot, feed them plenty, and send them back out warm. Hard work, hot meals, that was the contract. In CCC camps, the mess hall wasn't background, it was the engine, serving 3 square meals a day and even trucking hot food out to distant work sites when the job ran long. And on holidays, those same kitchens turned into memory machines, printed menus, turkey, and all the fixings that made a barracks feel like home. If this tour gave you a taste of the past, tap like, subscribe, and tell us which camp supper you'd bring back to your table. Next up, more forgotten flavors from the Tree Army's kitchen.